If you have been with me for a while, you know that the topics covered often challenge everything that we have ever believed. The thoughts and concepts that we cover certainly reach the outer limits of imagination and go where few channels have gone before. Well, today is no different. Everyone wants disclosure. My friend Max says it all the time, but the fact is that we have been in disclosure since before some of you may have been born. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? But you may be surprised at the programming that was preparing your mind for the disclosure event that is about to happen. Our reality is our perception of the world around us. From the moment we are born, throughout school and in movies and television, we are creating our perception of the world. Many have seen a movie and then later learn that it was remarkably accurate in portraying real-life events. Well, it's no mistake. Before his assassination, President Robert F. Kennedy said, "I found out something I never knew. I found out that my world was not the real world." Now you too are learning the same thing. I'm going to show you that media programming has been a part of the plan for a very long time, both from the bad guys and the good guys. We were the only ones that didn't know about it. Before we get into it, if you enjoyed this content, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more, and share with friends who might love it too. Your support really helps the channel grow, and if you'd like to go the extra mile, consider leaving a super thanks in the 3 dots under the video. Every bit helps me keep creating great content for you. Thanks so much. We've talked in the past about mind control techniques that have been used to manipulate both adults and children. I'll link that video in the description and at the end. Today, though, we are going to look at just a couple of the shows that you watched back when that likely affected your perception of extraterrestrial contact today. From a child, I loved the Jetsons. It had flying cars, food replicators, and all kinds of future technology where I could see myself living. Today, we are going to talk about a secret program involving the use of the Hollywood movie industry to mold your perception of extraterrestrials. We are also going to discuss 2 television series that enjoyed a wide audience. No doubt you will have seen at least one of them. But first, we have to look at how we know this generational indoctrination was part of a soft disclosure plan as far back as the 1950s. So let's look into the deals that we never knew about. The Galactic Federation of Worlds has been working with the U.S. Navy since the 40s. Many of you are familiar with the Solar Warden space program. A covert U.S. Navy space initiative was launched in the 1980s. Well, the Galactic Federation assisted us in the establishment of this program. The Solar Warden program operates a fleet of advanced spacecraft, including large cigar-shaped vessels, and is staffed by terrestrial and non-terrestrial officers. The program's purported activities involve patrolling and safeguarding the solar system, as well as engaging in undisclosed missions beyond Earth's atmosphere. As part of the cooperative efforts of the Navy and the Federation, information has been subtly introduced about advanced technologies and extraterrestrial presence to the public via the entertainment industry. In fact, the Galactic Federation has been working with U.S. naval intelligence for a long time to seed the collective mind on Earth with advanced concepts like teleportation, warp drive, wormholes, and the Prime Directive. My friend Dan Willis has an amazing website called thewebmatrix.net. He exposes all of the background information that ties everything together and has been one source for this and other videos of mine. I will link this website in the description of this video. The soft disclosure strategy aims to gradually acclimate society to our future realities without causing widespread disruption and psychological impact. In contrast, the U.S. Air Force, which in theory should have a lot of reports of UFOs, has been more tight about disclosure, possibly to conceal certain covert activities of their own. There are other names that will surprise you that have been instrumental in this effort, and we are going to take a look at them and their part in world disclosure. Project Dove was a covert U.S. military initiative during the 1950s and 1960s aimed at influencing public perception through collaboration with Hollywood. This collaboration became the Military Entertainment Complex. Today, this practice of mind manipulation has extended into multimedia, virtual reality, and multisensory extended reality. So your kids are probably getting a pretty good dose, but this video is going to focus on movies and TV shows. A memo stating that the cinema is one of the most powerful propaganda weapons at the disposal of the United States was issued by the Office of Strategic Services in 1943, which was in charge of psychological warfare. Its activities included propaganda, subversion, sabotage, and espionage. That office was a precursor to the CIA. The project involved the Department of Defense, DoD, working closely with filmmakers to produce movies and television shows that portrayed the military in a favorable light, thereby shaping public opinion and garnering support for military policies. This collaboration led to the production of numerous films and TV series that highlighted military heroism and advanced the DoD's strategic narratives. Project Dove served to create the public perception of ETs as a threat, understanding that fear and terror are useful applications in media propaganda to control the public's perceptions. The OSS Military Intelligence Director, General William Wild Bill Donovan, sanctioned development of an Americanized version of Nazi psychological warfare propaganda techniques, which was defined as full-spectrum dominance over all aspects of a target population's interpretive and decision-making faculties by employing all of the techniques of mass communication propaganda and, the all-important component, the calculated application of terror. It is believed that a false flag alien invasion has been planned for a very long time. Orson Welles broadcast the War of the Worlds radio program on October 30, 1938. This program was funded by the Rockefeller Foundation as a psychological study of the public's reaction to a fake alien invasion. The foundation indirectly funded this study through the Princeton Radio Project, which was guided by the Council on Foreign Relations. The DoD, or Department of Defense, has been providing resources such as equipment, locations, and technical advisors to filmmakers for a very long time. In return, the military often influenced scripts to propagate a narrative that was part of their mission. In fact, the DoD has an entertainment media unit within the Office of the Secretary of Defense in the Pentagon. Many movie and television productions are contractually supervised by this entertainment media unit. Movie scripts are submitted to the DoD for vetting. Back in World War II, the U.S. Office of War Information had a unit exclusively dedicated to Hollywood called the Bureau of Motion Pictures. They discarded many scripts that did not portray the U.S. in a positive light, so the censorship in media has been going on for a very long time. The movie Top Gun was created to change the image of the U.S. Navy post-Vietnam War. In fact, military recruiters often had tables set up for its premiere at theaters. It appears that they continue to operate with the 2019 release of Unidentified Inside America's UFO Investigation on the History Channel. John Podesta, of all people, actually became involved in the Pentagon program to educate the public of the alien threat to our national security. So the threat of an alien invasion is a hidden agenda, not from the ETs but from people on Earth. And they have been hitting you with everything from news to movies to the History Channel to color your idea of all extraterrestrials. If there was an alien threat, it no longer exists. The Galactic Federation is closely monitoring human affairs. We have mentioned Haim Eshed in the past. He is an Israeli professor of aeronautics and astronautics, widely recognized as the father of Israel's space security program. Eshed revealed secret agreements between the U.S. and extraterrestrials and a joint U.S. extraterrestrial base on Mars. He also reported that the Galactic Federation is closely monitoring human affairs. Haim also declared that President Donald Trump was on the verge of alien disclosure when he was in office, but he was to hold off since Earth had not yet reached the level of technological development required. I will link articles about this in the description for your review. Consequently, the Space Force was created, presumably to assist in speeding up humanity's technological base. We are no longer fighting for our freedom alone, guys. With some help from our friends, we're gonna get there. As with everything, there are always two sides. So what we want to do now is focus on the efforts and guidance of the Galactic Federation of Worlds and the US military to influence Hollywood productions. Their aim was to include themes and narratives that familiarize audiences with the idea of extraterrestrial beings and interstellar alliances from a non-fear-based perspective, the players. So, let's look at how the Federation got involved with programming in the United States. Back in the 40s, there was another body established called the Interplanetary Phenomenon Unit. It was set up by the Army to investigate the flying saucer phenomenon. A critical component was the use of psychological warfare to hide the truth about extraterrestrial phenomena from the general public. At the age of 18, a man named Leslie Stevens IV joined the U.S. Army Air Force. He later became an intelligence officer in psychological warfare operations. Before joining the military, Leslie had written several plays and short stories, which gave him the right combination of skills for his future role in the soft disclosure of extraterrestrials. Stevens's father was Vice Admiral Leslie Stevens, who had 36 years in specialized naval aviation and foreign intelligence. Admiral Stevens served as the U.S. Naval Attaché in Moscow, Germany, from 1947 to 1949, a critical period during the early stages of the Cold War, so he certainly was in the right place at the right time. Another name that crops up is Rear Admiral Rico Botta, a U.S. Navy officer associated with UFOs and extraterrestrial phenomena through his involvement with the U.S. Navy secret space program during the 1940s. Following the Los Angeles air raid of February 24th and 25th, 1942, which involved unidentified flying objects and a chaotic military response, the Navy initiated a secret research program to investigate anti-gravity propulsion technologies. Admiral Botta led the debriefing of operatives at Naval Air Station San Diego, who had been embedded in Nazi-occupied Europe to study German flying saucer programs. Admiral Stevens was Admiral Botta's contemporary, and it is assumed he was briefed. These operatives reported that the Nazis were receiving assistance from the Draco reptilians who gave the technology to the Nazis in Antarctica. Admiral Botta directed William Tomkins, a U.S. Navy sailor and disseminator of naval research and information at the time. Tomkins was to disseminate confidential briefing packets to select think tanks, corporations, and universities across the country. Tomkins later collaborated with aerospace companies to design spacecraft for a secret U.S. Navy space program, which he claimed was assisted by extraterrestrial visitors described as Nordics. Dan Willis's dad worked under Baca at NASSD in the department that Tomkins worked in. Later, Tomkins became a secret space program witness who said that Admiral Stevens was made aware of Nazi Germany's flying saucer programs. According to Tomkins, Admiral Stevens oversaw a covert Navy espionage program aimed at studying Nazi flying saucers during and after World War II. Dr. Michael Salla wrote a book about the U.S. Navy secret space program. I will link it in the description of this video. The Outer Limits is a classic science fiction anthology television series that aired in two primary runs. The original series aired for 2 seasons from 1963 to 1965. The show was created to seed the audience's minds with concepts that reached the outer limits of man's imagination, with content such as alien encounters, dystopian futures, and the dangers of unchecked technology. Each episode was a standalone story, often with a twist ending. An iconic control voice was used to introduce and conclude episodes with memorable lines like, "Do not adjust your set. We control the horizontal and the vertical." In fact, let's look at the opening dialogue of The Outer Limits.
There is nothing wrong with your television set. Do not attempt to adjust the picture. We are controlling transmission. If we wish to make it louder, we will bring up the volume. If we wish to make it softer, we will tune it to a whisper. We will control the horizontal. We will control the vertical. We can roll the image, make it flutter. We can change the focus to a soft blur or sharpen it to crystal clarity. For the next hour, sit quietly and we will control all that you see and hear. We repeat, there's nothing wrong with your television set. You are about to participate in a great adventure. You are about to experience the awe and mystery which reaches from the inner mind to the outer limits.
This first series included 49 episodes and is often compared to The Twilight Zone for its similar exploration of speculative fiction. After developing a cult following, The Outer Limits was revived in 1995 by Showtime, later moving to the Sci-Fi Channel. This series lasted 7 seasons and had 152 episodes, ending in 2002. Let's look at a couple of these series and what they were disclosing. First, nearly every episode involved extraterrestrials or aliens and involved everything from robots to time travel to a Mars space program. They even covered alien mind enslavement. The very first show was about first contact with an energy alien from the Andromeda Galaxy. Anything ring a bell? The second show, which was in 1963, was about a new skin molding technique which allowed the replacement of the president and nobody would know. This is like deja vu. Episode 8 was about a machine which enables the army to tune in directly into someone's thoughts. How many times have we heard of the thought police? Episode 19 talked about a new world order created by crustacean aliens. Episode 30 was about interdimensional doorways. The synchronicities with what we are learning is true are just amazing for a 60-year-old television show. But there's more. The creator of the Outer Limits TV series was Leslie Stevens IV. That intelligence officer trained in psychological warfare operations whose father was Navy Vice Admiral Leslie Stevens III, with connections to the PSYOP division of the Office of Naval Intelligence. Let's look a little deeper into the background of the man who created this predictive programming TV series back in the 60s. The younger Stevens joined the Army Air Force at the age of 18 and became an intelligence officer. He was likely inspired by the Interplanetary Phenomenon Unit, which was set up by the Army G2 to investigate the flying saucer phenomenon. The Army G2 refers to the Intelligence Directorate within the U.S. Army's organizational structure. It is responsible for overseeing all intelligence activities and operations. In addition to intelligence gathering, counterintelligence, and strategic planning, a significant component of the Army G2 is psychological warfare in hiding the truth about these phenomena from the general public while seriously investigating them. I know this is a lot to absorb. It is for me. But the important thing to understand is that the father of the creator of the Outer Limits television series was Vice Admiral Leslie Stevens III, who also served as the director of the Psychological Strategy Board. Considering his expertise in aviation and aeronautics, foreign intelligence, and his overlapping service with Rear Admiral Rico Botta, there's a high probability that Vice Admiral Stevens knew what Botta had learned about Nazi aerospace projects that began after the Los Angeles air raid incident. This notion was validated by secret space program whistleblower William Tomkins, which documents confirm was the disseminator of naval research information. The document will be linked in the description. Tomkins' testimony is supported by an extensive number of documents, and he has stated that Admiral Stevens was indeed made aware of what the Navy had learned about Nazi Germany's flying saucer programs. He confirmed that the program hid the truth in plain sight while simultaneously ridiculing those people who revealed details without authorization. So it appears that particular people are chosen to soft disclose, and whistleblowers could be discredited by chalking up their assertions to science fiction programs. Also, in the event of a real threat that forced disclosure, the people would already be primed. The evidence supports that Vice Admiral Stevens shared his knowledge about the Nazis and the development of over 30 spacecraft prototypes with his son Leslie Stevens, and that this information, as well as extraterrestrial assistance by reptilian humanoids in Antarctica, was surely inspiration for his television work. Compounded by his own expertise in psychological warfare and his flair as a writer, Leslie Stevens was the perfect fit for soft disclosure in the entertainment business. The program led to movie and television producers routinely receiving partial briefings of classified programs for the purpose of new programming. Let's move on to another iconic program which was also part of the Soft Disclosure Initiative. Another name that was a wide-reaching production that served to bring superior technology into the consciousness of mankind was a man named Gene Roddenberry. He was the creator of the Star Trek franchise, which continues to enjoy a huge cult following today. Perhaps Trekkies knew something that we didn't know. Roddenberry had various associations with the U.S. military, both during and after his service in World War II and throughout his career. He grew up in Los Angeles and his father was a cop. His military background and interactions with military officials influenced his work on the Star Trek franchise. Roddenberry served as a pilot during World War II, rising to the rank of second lieutenant in the U.S. Army Air Forces. Like so many, the Air Force or the Navy come into play, and remember that the Air Force was resistant to cooperate with the Soft Disclosure Program. After the war, Roddenberry continued to have an affinity for the military, which was evident in some of the themes of Star Trek. He highlighted the military as a force for good in the quest for peace and exploration. Star Trek also depicted military figures in various forms, including the United Federation of Planets Starfleet, which introduced both good and bad extraterrestrial species. It was clear that the Office of Naval Intelligence showed interest in the Star Trek series. In fact, many believe that the series was supported by the Galactic Federation of Worlds, which was working with the Office of Naval Intelligence since the 1940s. The GFW gave much of the script contents to be passed on to Gene Roddenberry, instilling the concepts of the Prime Directive, teleportation, warp drive, wormholes, etc. The purpose of Star Trek was to create a bridge in the collective consciousness of our planet with these concepts, which in the future would no longer be science fiction, but our true Star Trek-like future. One of the significant aspects of his cooperation with U.S. naval intelligence was through official Star Trek consultation. Roddenberry openly reached out to intelligence experts for technical accuracy, especially regarding the portrayal of space exploration and technological concepts. His meetings with various military officials helped shape how military personnel, like the character of Captain Kirk, were portrayed in the series. Admiral Stevens is said to have been one of the key military figures in advising Roddenberry on aspects of Star Trek's portrayal of space exploration, Starfleet operations, and technology. There are indications that Roddenberry cooperated with military officials to ensure the series met certain expectations related to the military's vision of space exploration. Despite the series' emphasis on peace and exploration, Starfleet officers are depicted with ranks, uniforms, and military discipline, reflecting the military's influence on the show's design. After his celebrated 5-year mission as captain of the USS Enterprise of the original series, Kirk was promoted to Admiral within Starfleet. This designation is another indicator of the Navy's influence, and the fact that Captain James T. Kirk became an admiral, not a general, is important. You see, generals are the highest rank in the Army, the Air Force, the Marines, and now the new Space Force, whereas admirals are the highest rank only in the Navy and the Coast Guard. So, it is undisputed that Gene Roddenberry did cooperate with the Office of Naval Intelligence during the creation of Star Trek, including consulting with military figures like Admiral Stevens. His Navy service and connections likely helped shape the content, themes, and structures within the Star Trek universe, blending realism with idealism in its portrayal of space exploration. In fact, we are learning that other civilizations do live according to ideals, and it is very real. Very much like the Galactic Federation of Worlds, the prime directive in Star Trek was to not interfere directly with lesser evolved civilizations. Within the scripts of Star Trek, technologies that were science fiction then are realized today. Technologies such as the holodeck, food replicators, laser guns, and communicators, to name a few. So here we are, stretching your mind to its outer limits and going where few YouTube channels have gone before. As you awaken, you are learning that perhaps a lot more than you originally imagined is happening. It's nothing to be fearful of, just the opposite. The future is a time of great joy and unity for all of mankind and beyond. He never wants credit, but Dan reviewed this video for me, and his final words in the email were, "Yes, our Star Trek future is upon us now." To have someone with his background say that means a lot to me. I hope it gives you a wonderful feeling of hope and joy for the upcoming holiday season.